see we have an Arsenal supporter. Thierry Henry. Do you know today's result yet? Did Peterborough play today? My other team, Peterborough. Why did he? Here's Derrick. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Derrick Sherwin. Did they? 2-1. Thank you so much. They're in Division 1. Arsenal in the Championship. Oh, I think beat them last year. They crawling back up again. The only Peterborough panel, Barry Fine.
Yep, it's on this list. Will be.
Sorry, I'm late.
Right, well, we're going to kick off, as we now seem to have a full complement of fabulous panellists for this little discussion. This is the Missing Episodes panel, and very shortly we'll be showing you all the missing episodes in their entirety. Thank you.
Because we don't know why the hell they went missing, any of us.
No.
Ask the BBC.
So, I'd like to just introduce you to the people on the panel today. And from my far left, we have producer of Doctor Who, and writer, and story editor, and all-round godfather of Doctor Who, Mr. Derrick Sherwin. Next to Derrick, we have writer, noveliser, Long Island's very own Mr. John Peel. And some other guy. So, and of course, Mr. Frazer Hines. Who are you? I have no clue.
Who are you?
I'm drunk. I am
Mr.
David J. Howe. That's me. Thank you very much. So. If we're going to talk about missing episodes, fascinating. It's a packed panel tonight. Brilliant, isn't it? So I think you're expected to see some. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? But we'll see how the evening expands. So, missing episodes. Where do we even start? Why are there missing episodes? I mean, I suppose that's a good place to start, isn't it? Anyone? John, can you tell us why there are missing episodes?
Oh, yes, the obvious reason, of course. It's the BBC. Yeah.
Are we on?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah. It's the BBC, who never did anything right if they could do it wrong, right?
That's about right.
Yeah, I think.
You didn't get that wrong. Fantastic.
Yes. The BBC decided nobody would ever want to see these old, crappy pieces of whatever again. And it wasn't just Doctor Who. They jumped a lot of amazingly good shows. And it's amazing anything survived from them, really, isn't it? From the early days. They just decided nobody wants black and white anymore anyway.
Yeah.
We're never going to repeat this stuff. Let's just throw it away.
But it was a question of money. As ever with the BBC, it was a question of money. We made all these 2-inch tapes in those days, if you remember. And the only thing they made after that were 16mm films, which they used to distribute around the rest of the poor world. To suffer our awful shows we made in those days. But it was a question of money. So, because these 2-inch tapes were very, very expensive. So they thought, well, we won't want these again, and we've got these 16 centimetre films, we'll use those. But of course they didn't have all the 16mm films. But they dumped the tapes anyway. They didn't dump, they just reused them because they were very expensive. That, I feel, is the only reason I can think why the BBC should have decided to lose everything. Because it was the 16mm films that get lost, but the other tapes have been used in other programmes. That's my thought. I may be right, I may be wrong, but that's the way I think. If you think like the BBC, you think in pounds, shillings and pence. They do.
And you've also got a basic problem with the BBC, as with any big organisation. I'm sure lots of you guys work for big organisations. I'm sure you work in your department and you do what your department does. And you know, if you work, I know, in sales, you assume there's probably a department looking after buying and distribution and how those things get out there. You just assume that all that's happening. The BBC's no difference at all. So you've got one department which is looking after the 2-inch tapes. They assume that another department has got all of these 16mm films. Right. Just assume. So, well, it's not our job, it's not my department's job to look after those. We know we haven't got them, but someone must have them somewhere. So we'll get rid of the bits that we've got on the assumption that they've got them somewhere else. Problem is, the other department said, well, we'll get rid of all of these 16mm films because they've got them in the, they've got the videotapes for them. What do we need to get the films for? They've got the video.
BBC says they've been archived. If you know anything about the BBC archives, you know that it's the first place in the world you look when something gets lost.
Yeah.
When I claimed, in fact, for the creation of unit and whatnot, they said, oh, look at your archives, we'll find out all the information. They hadn't got the damned archives, they'd been lost.
Yes.
So they had no record of my contracts or anything. So it was all lost. It was in the archives, we can't find it.
Crazy.
We haven't got the people to go and search through all these archives. Tough shit. Not my problem.
I can give another example of how the BBC worked like this. They actually were selling photographs at one point where you could buy them from the BBC themselves. You could buy a photograph from a particular show. And I ordered a couple from the Romans, and they sent them to me. And after they sent them to me, they discovered they hadn't kept any copies themselves, and they hadn't got the negatives. So I ended up with one picture which nobody else had until I sent it back to them, so they could copy it.
For a huge fee? I bet they didn't copy it, they sent it to somebody else.
The BBC, you know. But that was how it worked.
If you look up the definition of archive in the BBC handbook, it probably says buried in the M6 motorway.
Well, it's the thing from Yes Minister, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they weren't on computers then. It was all paper.
Yes.
Paper. Stacks of it. I mean, I went to look for some stuff when I was editing Doctor Who script editing. I buggered if I could find it. It was gone forever. Some of the scripts, the original scripts, had gone. And this is somebody's damn copyright. They spent hours writing, and it disappeared.
Well, I was doing a commentary on an early show with Wendy Padbury, and we broke for coffee. And I said, I wonder how much this costs now, as opposed to David Tennant's tenure. And this guy came back with a big old, like a solicitor's thing, blew the dust off, opened the ribbon, he said, now, Frazer, you're on £40 an episode. Ronald Lee Hunt was £110 an episode. The set cost $1,200. They'd kept the paperwork but thrown the program away.
That's just typical BBC.
I have, when I was writing a Dalek Master Plan novel, Terry sent me what he had on the Dalek Master Plan, which is a pile of paper like yay big, because Terry never threw anything away, which is good. But it's every internal memo from the BBC about every aspect of the show, from set design and everything. They kept all of that, as you say. And the episode's gone, but a lot of records about what they did with it.
Keep the paperwork. And that would take up as much room as a cat is fantastic.
And it always ends up in Hong Kong.
So I was going to say, so then what happens is, so the BBC basically got rid of whatever they had. So there was a point in the, when was it, 1970s, late 1970s? Yeah. When, I can't remember the numbers, but there was like a vast number of episodes missing. And the BBC, because home video was coming along, and because people were starting to ask for these programmes, so I thought, maybe we could make a few bucks off this. You know, maybe there is a market for this. What have we got, guys? And were quite shocked themselves, I think, to realise that they didn't have anything. I think the other aspect to all of this, it's so complicated, is that the BBC, although they had a remit to make television programmes, they didn't have one to keep them. It wasn't in their remit to actually keep these things. And it wasn't.
It was called the Archives.
It's called the Archives, yeah. So it wasn't until quite late on that they came up with the idea of actually having a proper archivist and a proper archive of these things. So they started to try and work out where these things were, and to be honest with you, as far as I understand, they did actually find quite a lot of films and things that they still had themselves. BBC Enterprises had a pile, I think BFI had some. They found lots of them kind of lying around and were able to kind of fill in various gaps, but it still left 100 and whatever it was episodes that were missing of Doctor Who. And that's when people started to realise that actually they had made black and white film copies of these episodes to sell them abroad. And these black and white film copies were supposed to be used by the television stations and then returned to the BBC for destruction or whatever. But of course, television companies being what they don't always do what they're told. And so a lot of them never bothered to actually return these film copies that they had of these episodes. So they were still sitting in film vaults in Australia and New Zealand, around the country, and all this kind of stuff. So Hong Kong. And so they started to then obviously run out and say, well, where are these film copies? What can we find? And obviously some more came back from that. And then of course the process slows because you've looked everywhere. It's like trying to find your keys in the house, you know. I mean, you've looked everywhere that might be obvious that these things might be. You've got to then put a lot more work in. And a lot more work in means a lot more money. And the BBC obviously reaches a point when it's not cost effective to keep trying to look for these things. And that's then where the fan effort kicks in and the fans themselves start to go, well, actually, the BBC won't pay for this, we'll try and do it. And you then start to find these episodes coming in from and Hong Kong. And, because
somewhere in Africa. Anyway.
Yeah, somewhere in Africa. But you know, Hong Kong's amazing. They can create anything out there. They pirate everything. You know, why on earth didn't Hong Kong pirate every single Doctor Who episode? And then we have copies.
Yeah.
What's the matter with them?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
They weren't paying attention.
They weren't paying attention.
But the thing is that now we're on computer. So almost everything goes down on computer.
Yes.
I mean, all my scripts that I write now, they all go down my computer as well as theirs.
Yes.
So I ain't go through them. Maybe I can get a second fee for them.
Hey, fantastic. And I'm sure you all know as well that the latest episodes to be found was by a gentleman called Phil Morris, who has a television kind of recovery company. I don't know how you describe it. But basically, Phil's mission is to trawl the world, try and find lost television. That's kind of his job, that's what his company does. And of course, as we all know, he found the 9 episodes of
Web of Fear and
Enemy of the World in, where the hell was it? Nigeria, so he goes then all over.
And I spoke to him last week, he's found 4 more of my lost stories.
Has he?
Yeah. It's the... and those are the 4 stories he found.
Wow. Thank you, Frazer. So yeah, so he found... this is going to go on like this, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know me. You know me.
I know you.
Yes.
I know you. Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah. So I mean, what a brilliant 50th anniversary of the show, and not only do we have like obviously new Doctor Who from Matt Smith, etc., but we actually have effectively new Doctor Who from the 1960s as well available to buy. It's just absolutely incredible.
And one of them was Web of Fear, which is one of the best.
Yeah.
Derrick Sherwin.
And I was so pleased they found the Enemy of the World, because for years I was saying, Patrick's so great, Enemy of the World. What's the monster? There's no monster, there's There's no monster. Doctor Who, it's a really good story, but there's no monster. It might be crap. How can it be a good story? Now they've found it, people come up to me, you're so right, the enemy of the world, what a great story that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it had such a terrible reputation before people started seeing it.
That's right, yeah.
And as soon as they started seeing it, it was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Yeah. But before then, they were really saying, oh, I'm in the world.
We have a psychic audience.
So what do you remember about Web of Fear, Derek?
Web of Fear, not a lot.
Okay. Moving on.
Let me expand on that. I became involved with Web of Fear because I was fairly newly appointed assistant script editor, because the Web of Fear had been written by Hazelman and Lincoln, and they'd been commissioned by, I believe, Peter Draper. Peter Draper? No, that's another writer. Peter Bryant. Who was then story editor, then was becoming the producer. So I was left with the short end of the stick, in other words, the back end of Web of Fear, to work with Ducky Canfield in order to work out how to do these things you couldn't do in the underground. We had to build the damn sets. So I got involved on the practical side of it. As far as editing was concerned, I wasn't involved, other than the fact that I'd already written the Invasion, and in it I'd invented Unit and come up with Stewart. And Peter saw that, he said, well, let's introduce them early. Let's put them instead of the army that Hazelman and Lincoln had written for the Web of Fear. Let's put in the Unit people to run them up to appearing in the Invasion, which, of course, the story editor did as I was told, and took my own words from the Invasion and popped all the characters into the Web of Fear, and so just replaced the army unit, and we can't call them Unit. And so I was very happy with that. We introduced them early on in the days. But ultimately, I wasn't creative. I wasn't attributed to being as a creator of Unit and all the characters involved in. And I never got paid for the damn thing. That's another good thing that BBC is good at, not paying you for something that is legitimately yours. I'm still owed vast fortune for BBC by using Unit for, what, 5 years? Thereafter, and in other spin-off shows, they wouldn't admit it. They said, no, that wasn't good to you, it was in the Web of Fear. Hazelman and Lincoln. They didn't write Unit, I did, for God's sake. It's in that one which I wrote before they left. You can't win with the BBC, you really can't.
Well, what I remember about the Web of Fear is in those days, in the 60s, the London Transport Underground closed from about midnight till 5 in the morning, and the BBC wanted to film down there, and London Transport said, no, you cannot film down there. So they built the set on this underground station. The first episode went out, and the BBC got a phone call from the London Transport lawyers saying, you've obviously broken into Covent Garden, you've filmed without our permission, we'll have to sue you. And they said, come and see the set, come down and see the set. And they came to the studio and saw this wonderful underground, even the wires were higgledy piggledy, there was a dead rat in the corner, the railway lines, and the London Transport said, well, that's amazing. And what those guys did with the budgets they had, I mean, they should have got special TV awards. Nowadays, there'd just be a green screen, and the actors, oh, I'm under the underground now. What those boys built, fantastic.
So do we assume that everybody, is there anyone here who hasn't seen Web of Fear? Oh, some people haven't seen Web of Fear.
I'll be signing copies in the morning.
You should seek it out, it's a great story.
A lot of the recovered shows actually were your stories, weren't they?
Yes, yeah. The web.
So is it weird for you seeing suddenly re-emerging, Underwater Menace?
I haven't seen that yet because the BBC haven't sent me my free copy.
Oh,
but when I watched the Web of Fear, Debs and I were watching it, and I was a bit blasé, and then I went, Debs, the last time we saw this was in the BBC Lime Grove canteen at 7 o'clock, having a supper break before recording. That's 43 years ago. We've never seen it since.
yeah.
It's
never been repeated, has it?
No, haven't been.
Just extraordinary. And I was just saying that, as you mentioned, Underwater Menace, and of course Underwater Menace episode 2, was it? 2, 3? Which was the one that was... 2 was the one. 2 was the one that was found. So that was the last episode that was known to exist that had never been released on DVD, which of course has just come out. I don't know if it's come out in America yet, has it?
No.
Well, you can...
Still on preview.
Not...
You can order.
You can what?
You order from the UK.
Yeah, you can go to the UK.
Yeah,
right, okay.
But they will do it in TSC and PAL.
Yeah. Never twice the same colour, and
It's due to be released. It's on pre-order on Amazon.
is it? Okay, I didn't know, because I know it's only in the UK now, I didn't know if the American edition had come out, so...
I haven't seen it yet.
It's usually a couple months now.
Again, so it's a lovely little episode. It's really nice to see it. It's really nice that it kind of completes the known to exist episodes. And I think I'm right in saying, and I'd love someone to contradict me, that the only other episode that is thought to exist is, of course, Web of Fear 3. And I don't know if you saw this online, that Phil Morris came out with a photograph that he'd taken in the storage unit, which clearly shows all the episodes of Web of Fear there at the point that he found them, and then when they eventually got round to shipping them to him, episode 3 wasn't there anymore. So the implication is that it's there somewhere, but as to exactly where or who's got it or why it wasn't there, or did they lose it, did they spill their coffee on it,
It's in the bloody archives.
It's in the archives, yeah. Who knows? So, yeah.
I was going to say, when you watch eventually the Underwater Menace, can you just watch it as a story and just think, 40 or 50 years ago, that's the budget they had? Don't freeze frame and go, oh, you can see the underwater, people swimming, you can see wires, you can see the makeup. You just watch it as the story, as we made it, and how we believed that was happening. Some people, they freeze frame and go, oh, you can see a wire there. Oh, well, look at that person. Oh, nowadays, green screen, they'd be underwater. They'd film it underwater. They would have a budget to film it actually underwater.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remember also, there were no 60-inch TVs back then.
No.
When you were watching it on a screen like yay big, if there were wires, you would never see it, right?
No, you'd never see them. Never see them.
We're watching things that could not have been possible seen back then. Of course you could notice a few flaws, but the stories are the same.
Yeah. I actually think Underwater Menace is pretty good, to be honest. I think that episode 2, we had episode 3 already, and I think everyone sort of smiled a bit at Joseph's first performance as Zaroff, which is a little bit scenery chewy, over the top to say the least. Episode 2 kind of mellows it a bit, and you kind of see what leads up to that, in that he is slowly going more and more insane over the course of the story, and you kind of get that sort of sense coming through. That's nice.
And Annika Wills in that very short hospital gown as well.
Steady Frazer. Yeah.
You notice the greatest scenes, Frazer. You really do.
I'm attention to detail, Derek.
Yeah.
Attention to detail. That was a proper hospital gown.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But actually, if they found any more episodes, which would you like to see back?
Obviously, I'd love to see the Highlanders, and the very fact they found the Underwater Menace, which is my second story, gives me a little bit more hope now, because I thought they'll Max find some of my last stories, but the very fact that was the second story, they found that, and the Evil of the Daleks, I think would be I know there's one episode of the Evil of the
There's
Daleks.
one that exists.
Yeah, because that's a great story as well, with Marius Goring playing Professor Maxwell.
I think Phil probably looked on the shelf next to where you found just to see if there was another Doctor Who there.
Has anybody ever asked the BBC these questions? What happened to these?
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody know? Apart from the archives.
Well, one woman actually did admit that she said, yes, I commandeered that to be burnt or
Yeah,
erased.
but that was her job.
Yeah.
That was her job. If it's your job to destroy a television episode, that's your job. You just do your job. That's what you're being paid to do.
Actually, there are sometimes other reasons for doing this. Because I did a very short series of 6 or 7 hour episodes of something called the Pendragon Perils, which was set in Wales and was very, very funny. And we all laughed our heads off it. But very shortly afterwards, it disappeared. They wiped it. And why? Because the comedy department of the BBC had decided to make open all hours. And that's where it came from. Pendragon Perils. Somebody else's copyright. They said it was a great idea, we'd do it. It's the same characters. It had an uncle, a nephew running a corner shop. Now, how close can you get to a format? That, I'm sure, is my suspicious mind, but I think they dumped Pendragon Perils and picked up on it and made it open all hours.
Now, ITV, they must have a huge warehouse, because they do archive everything. I did so years ago called Coronation Street. I did a news thing the other day, and they showed one of my scenes. And then I did a thing called The Villains, which was a series. Each week was a guest star. This was live television as well, and somebody said, "Oh, Frazer, I found the villains."
That's the only part you've ever played in that bit, is it?
but the ITV actually must have a huge airport full of, and they've got me this episode, and I did the story about 6 months before I joined Doctor Who, so it was 1964-5.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate because a lot of this stuff, it is commercial concerns, is that, even if it does exist, we're never even going to know unless somebody somewhere thinks there's some money in selling and releasing it on DVD or whatever it might be. And although, we would love to see these things released, it's like, realistically, how many sales are they going to get?
Yeah.
Is it worth them finding the tapes, paying someone to clean them up and transfer them and do commentaries or whatever it might take to release that and get that actually out?
Yeah, there was no sentimentality in pounding and bets.
No at all. No.
Not as far as BBC is concerned. You've got to make a buck or it don't get made.
Yeah.
But it was down to the fandom of the Underwater Menace.
It is.
We've done the commentary, myself, Catherine Howe and Annika, and then it's shelved, it's not received, and the fans are going, right, if you've made it, we want to see what we see. And it was the fan power that actually got the BBC to release the Underwater Menace.
Yeah, it's a great little release. I mean, there's some lovely extras on it and all sorts of stuff. I think it'll get transferred across to America, don't they, usually? You usually get exactly the same stuff that we have in the UK. Pretty much. So, it's a great release. I wanted to just mention something else as well. I mean, we all talk about missing episodes, and it's a fascinating subject. But I was actually wondering, because I know I haven't, how many people have actually seen a missing episode? Do you know what a missing episode? Oh, how's it going on? Bloody hell.
Oh, right.
No, I don't mean seeing it as in watching it on the television, actually physically seeing an episode. So I don't think anybody has. Well, Steve, if you're there, mate, if you'd like to come up, Steve Seagal is actually a film collector, and he's actually got, it's obviously not a missing episode, but it was a missing episode. So Steve, can you explain what this is?
Yeah.
On 60mm film.
So this, what you're looking at, is episode 1 of The Crusades, otherwise known as The Lion. This was the actual print that was located in New Zealand in 1999. And on any DVD you see, there's a copy of this film.
It's a very
So that's actually, hold it that way, that is actually a real 60mm film. This is what is actually found. And I've never seen these things before.
Have you got any more? Stephen, have you got any more missing episodes?
Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah.
If you look at the can title, I was going to ask everybody if they, David and Frazer, maybe they heard of an episode called Menace from the Deep.
Menace?
Menace. That might be in the original story, the original title.
So Steve, this is a 25-minute.
That's a 25-minute.
25-minute reel.
Yeah.
So you can see how big that is. And then, as Derrick was saying, we were saying earlier, so if you're making, whatever it is, 12, 15 hours of television a day for 365 days a year, and you've been doing that from like 36.
So they didn't start telerecording until the late 50s.
Okay, so the 1950s to the 1970s. Imagine how many of these you've got to keep somewhere. And how much space that... And it's all flammable, yeah. Oh, incorrect.
All the film that the BBC would have used was the safety film, which is not flammable. Flammable
Take the
film,
BBC's part.
they stopped using flammable film about 1950, and it was only 35mm, and it was really only used in the 20s and 30s. So this is perfectly safe. I've got 10,000 reels of film in the house, and I'm not worried about it.
Have you told your insurance company?
I find it quite incredible, you can actually hold an original film print of Crusade.
Stolen from the big thing. Stephen Seagal.
It's fantastic.
I would like to add, if it's okay, Stephen has been very helpful, not only as a 16mm Doctor Who film collector, but as the BBC has needed stuff for the DVDs. He's have been very kind in helping supply material, so.
Yeah.
And why don't the BBC employ guys like this? They need them.
I must say, Steven Seagal, I watch all your martial art films as well.
As an action hero, you're second to none, mate, I tell you. So yeah, just so you can see, this is a sticker on the front. It says, black and white BMW film positive, title Tippexed out, with Menace from the Deep written underneath it, and producer B/W. Black and white. Editor telerecording. So you can see they're really, really diligent about the information. The FR VTR date is blank. TX date, 13th of the 11th, 1969.
Was it 64?
64.
Oh no, this is the can. This is the can for a Dad's Army episode. Okay, sequence complete film, 16mm, reel 1 of 1, footage 1,000 meters. Feet, sorry, 1,000 feet. And then it's got. What does co-opt mean?
It's composite optical. It's got both the sound and the film on the same picture and the same thing. It's composite and optical sound.
Okay. So sometimes it will be silent and the soundtrack will be separate.
Yeah, if you want me to look at a set-box,
Set-box, yeah?
separate magnetic.
Okay.
Comac.
Wow.
And if you're not a fan of the show, you can use it as a frisbee for your dog.
So I'd like to thank Steve for
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this one, but very recently they found the very first Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah?
1916, William Gillette. 1916. William Gillette, for those of you who don't know, is the guy who wrote the very first Sherlock Holmes play, and he played Sherlock Holmes in over 1,000 productions. The last half of his life, he played nothing but Sherlock Holmes. And this is the only example of him doing it on film. And it turned up in a French archive. Somebody opened the cabinet and there was this 1916 movie.
French do it as well.
Yeah, but thank God it was in workable condition. It's coming out on Blu-ray and everything in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
But if they could find a film from 1916...
But did they recently find as well that half of the Laurel and Hardy reel? They found half of the Laurel and Hardy they thought had been missing?
Your Hardy was missing.
Couldn't fit him in, yeah. So I think it gives hope that, you can open up a French archive and find something you never knew was there for 1917.
Why would it be there? You're in France. It was an American movie.
I'm assuming you've all checked under your beds just to make sure that there aren't any...
Maybe they should get in French, they should look for Dr. Key rather than Dr. Who. They're looking underneath.
Well, I don't think they ever sold them to the French. The BBC never sold them to the French.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I've never heard of it. No, actually. I don't think they did in the 60s. Because I think the first Doctor Who was on in France was Tom Baker stuff, I think.
Derrick, will you know if they sold anything to French television?
In the 60s?
No.
No, I wouldn't be told, no.